Welcome everybody. We are carrying out this session from last 2-3 weeks, and this is going so far so good. So what we do in this group is we discuss biopharma industry as a whole, and we have been doing this for weeks, and we have divided the whole session into different modules. So we finished the basic module, which comprises like the terminology, how is the spread within the Indian subcontinent and outside, and how the pharma industry is doing, current trends and the future of this biopharma industry worldwide, as well as specifically in Indian subcontinent. This week is a case studies module. So this is the first session of the case studies module, and I'm going to introduce a company called Endocyte. So this, in this case studies module, we will focus on different aspects of pharma industry. So this Endocyte company is specifically addressing the biopharma sector, and we will just start with the introduction. So Endocyte is based in the Purdue Research Park in United States. So I like to talk about this company because I like the way it originated. So most of the times we basic scientists think that running a company or starting a concept and making it into a company is not a work of scientists. But this company typically challenges that traditional approach. So as we all know, like small businesses in USA usually followed in the old era till 1998 or 97. Typical model in which like federal government and state government will help small businesses which are useful for public good, and definitely health is one of the important issues in that. But that module was not very good in terms of innovation. So as you know, like state government and federal government, what they provided were like the government support for like money, subsidy, and they also had some technology centers. And then they had some state-funded ventures. So these are good for like commodity-driven sectors, but not especially good for scientific sectors like IT or our biopharma business or pharmaceutical business. So it started changing in after 2000, when there was, we know like 1990, there was a IT boom and a lot of companies were growing up, and in 2000 there were like big MNCs which virtually transformed the whole IT world. And at the same time, from 1990, after the Hatchman Act came into act, so a lot of foreign API companies entered into US market. And that also changed a lot of things for the native big players for pharma, as well as it started the fertile ground for biopharma sector. So the main component of this was, among the government and small business ventures, there was introduction of academia. So in any science, academia plays an important role because all the base science, all the innovation comes from academic institutes or research labs. So those should be included. So there was a like university, as we call it now, academia industry collaborations. That was the start period when they started doing that. And in fact, NIH, National Institute of Health from US, it started this trend and found out that it is really important to percolate this basic science immediately into applied science so that they can fetch the fruits very fast. So coming to the main point, the pharma sector, and as we all know, the pharma sector is usually centered over high-priced diseases. One of them is cancer research. So because now we are talking about Endocyte, which is mainly targeting the cancer area, I will just say a few things about cancer. We all know that cancer is not a single ailment. It's a disease. I want to differ between ailment and disease because it's not a single shot. There is no single shot therapy available for cancer. You have to manage different things. So first is you have to manage like the immune response from the body when the tumor is growing, depending on the stage of the patient. Then we have to use anti-inflammatory blockers to manage the inflammatory and other signs so that it cannot lead to lethality. And then actual curative part is divided into two therapeutics by far. So first was the traditional approach in which we use chemotherapy and radiotherapy to just kill the cancerous cells, which are metastatic or are like this. Chemotherapy is still the main cancer treatment in advanced stages. Like if the patient is above stage 3, there is really not much to be done in those cases. So the new upcoming treatment options that are coming are still in infancy, but they are doing really good progress. So among them are like stimulatory vaccines, in which we use different protein antigens to induce from the cancer patients. They isolate those proteins and try to use that as a antigenic, to build the antigenic response in the already like stage 1 or stage 2 patients. Then they use tumor infiltrating lymphocytes, which are known markers for good clinical outcomes. So they can isolate these cells, grow in the lab, and then reintroduce into the patients. And the last one is CAR-T, which is the modified form of TIL, in which this CAR-T stands for chimeric antigenic receptors, T cells. What they do is like they introduce recombinant receptors on the surface of T cells. So those T cells can target the cancer cells and improve the immune response specifically to the cancer cells. So we know that the main problem with cancer therapy in advanced stages is half of the drug is not reaching. I'm saying half of the drug in general, but mostly the drug is not reaching to the target cell. And a lot of side effects are coming out, and we all know the adversity of those side effects. So we need the targeted therapy. So this term is used, rather abused a very large way in pharma industry specifically, but nowadays is really showing some good intent. So this company, Endocyte, typically stands between these two approaches, the adaptive immunity, stimulating the adaptive immunity, that is vaccines, TILs, and CAR-T recombinant approaches, and the chemotherapy. So what it does is it uses a receptor on the cell and attaches a small molecule which is known for its anti-cancer activity to that antibody or any other receptor like T-cell receptor or chimeric receptor, and it specifically delivers it on the cancer cells, excluding all the side effects. So this is a better precision medicine. So yeah, this was the just the introduction, like how these guys are using this specificity for receptors. And Endocyte is actually, I think, right now one of the initial companies. So they started in 1990s. 1991 was their initial publication. And they started focusing to use these receptors as therapeutic guide. So this is just an introduction to show, like, in a typical tumor environment, there are usually like 3-4 cells which play major role. One is like antigen presenting cell, which actually chews up all the cancer proteins, and presents it to the cells which produce the stimulatory cytokines. So those stimulatory cytokines are produced by immune cells like T cells, like lymphocytes, and then there are, of course, tumor cells. So there is a lot of crosstalk between all these cells. And what we target in CAR-T or any other receptor-mediated therapy is use this receptor for targeting this T cell to the tumor cell. So because they know this interaction and their use, either is stimulatory or inhibitory, they use this mechanism to deliver a specific small molecule attached to one of these receptors to the tumor cells. So that's a really good therapy, but it's still developing. So let's start with their concept. So Dr. Philip Lowe, who was the founder, he found out in 1991 that so his student was this Chris Lehman, who happens to be a VP of research now in this. So he was the student, so he did the experiments, but conceptually Dr. Lowe and Chris Lehman, they found out that this folic acid receptor on the cells of plant cells, actually they were working on plant cells, can really help deliver folic acid inside the cell. So it's doing the endocytosis. So they had a wild idea, because this was against the research that was proposed before or done before. They said there was no possibility that vitamin can be endocytosed inside the plant cells. So they found this, and they immediately were really happy, because they knew that folic acid requirement for the tumors is very high, and it's really specifically or differentially expressed on a lot of cancer cells. Like, differentially expressed means it's expressed specifically on tumor cells but not on normal cells. So they did that, and they used different macromolecules, and they proved that, okay, different macromolecules can be delivered inside the cells by endocytosis, which is mediated by folate receptor. So they had idea, it's simple. You just mimic the folic acid, bind it to a small molecule, it will go to cancer cell. That was their basic, that is still the basic component of this company. Like, they knew that folic acid or any other typical ligand can deliver the target. So there are also a lot of, cons. People from the industry, they definitely know the cons, but you want to message the specific things. So